This is Desm 101. Thanks for tuning in. Today, let's take a look at Space Debris for the PlayStation 1.
We've detected intruders entering the solar system, sir.
Mobilize the second fleet to engage.
Weapons locked, shields online, preparing to engage.
Roger that, Brian. Let's get some.
Space Debris is a PS1 game released in 2000, which only came out in PAL territories. It's a third-person rail shooter similar to games like Star Fox, the obvious comparison, and also Panzer Dragoon. Since it only saw a limited release, it is a rather obscure, unknown game, which is a shame because it's fun if you enjoy space flight sims or rail shooters in general. The game consists of 10 levels where you take control of James Bryant piloting your spacecraft against aliens and enemy spaceships. The action is fast and intense, where you need to quickly dodge oncoming fire while targeting the enemy and collecting power-ups. There are two types of levels, one where you fly along a predetermined path, unable to stop or turn around, although there are certain spots where you can have the option to take a fork in the path to an alternate branch of the stage, although you have to know exactly where these are. The second type of level is more of an arena, where you can fly out in the open in all directions. You need to protect a base or prevent a bomb from exploding, and so on. This helps change up the gameplay a bit, but overall I found these arena stages to be mostly a drag. We'll get into that later. The story behind Space Debris revolves around you being one of the last line of pilots in the UED. I think that means United Earth Defense. You're meeting up with new characters as you complete missions and even unlocking new spacecraft to pilot. It's not a particularly involving story, but thankfully it is short and sweet and doesn't get in the way. In fact, it's a nice bit of filler in between the stages that tie the game together and lead you into the next stage.
Colony's in ruins, Doc. No survivors on the ground.
Your ship comes equipped with a standard shield that functions as a life bar, a lock-on missile, a rapid-fire laser, plus up to 5 power-up abilities to your weapons. The ship can maneuver well with R1 or L1 giving you the ability to make sharp turn, and the L2 and R2 triggers for thrust and braking respectively. You can collect shield refills throughout the stages by destroying crates scattered throughout the level, or destroying certain enemies. The crates may also contain a smart bomb or weapon power-ups. The smart bomb is self-explanatory. You use them by pressing the triangle button, locking onto all nearby enemies and destroying them, while your weapon power-ups are a bit different from most shooters. The gauge on the right side of the screen will fill up as you collect weapon power-ups and defeat enemies. When it makes it to a certain height, the weapons will be upgraded by a notification from your onboard computer. The first upgrades are the lasers and then your missiles, and upwards to the shield at the top. If you take too much damage, you will get a weapons downgrade with a notification and go to the previous rung of power-ups on that list. You are given 3 lives and 3 continues, plus the options to set the difficulty and controls. The start screen indicates there is a way to access secrets, but I'm assuming you need to beat the game first. The game can be pretty difficult. The enemies are able to drain your life bar with a barrage of shots that can come at you constantly. It plays very much like an old school arcade game where you need to memorize every enemy location and levels where they branch off. It feels kind of cheap sometimes where you get stuck repeating many of the same segments over and over trying to figure out how to exactly get past something, specifically bosses in the arena levels. In particular, these ones will be an annoying amount of time that you're trying to get the task taken care of and you won't be able to meet it.
Just one reactor. That's all I
The look of the game overall is rather good for a PS1 game, and I enjoy some of the complex lighting effects and unique low-poly models for the ships and enemies. There's a nice variety of enemies in all shapes and sizes, ranging from the popcorn ships to biomechanical designs and bug-like creatures. The bosses are quite impressive with a good variety of looks, and usually they take up a larger part of the screen, often creating some very fun and engaging battles. Your ship doesn't look bad at all and is easy to track during the gameplay without getting in the way. The levels look decent but are not very memorable. Some parts of the game will suffer from bad draw distance and you will be directed at a target that you can't see right in front of you because the game isn't able to render it on the screen until you get closer. Think of the fog in N64 but more like a dark black fog. This can be frustrating because on the arena levels, like I said before, there is just not enough time to complete the objective and you'll be frantically looking for your target, which is right in front of you. You just can't see them or target them. Similar to the looks, the music is pretty good. They went with a traditional orchestrated style soundtrack over an electronic dance and music one. I think it fits the atmosphere of the game well and reminds me of the classic space epic kind of style.
The latest Tacticom software and upgraded drive units. What do you think, Captain?
Hey, what are we waiting for?
So coming out in 2000, this is their late release for the system, and it supports DualShock controllers with analog to help you steer the ship better. Looking at reviews from the time, it seems like it got average to mediocre reviews. Most of them look at the game like an unoriginal version of Star Fox that lacks enough to really set it apart. The developer Rage had some hits with their Striker series, but also had their hands involved in some duds like the home ports of Revolution X and the Saturn port of Doom. While I do like the game, it can seem to lack polish at times with the cheap enemies that can track you perfectly, in addition to countdown that gives you far too little time that I mentioned earlier. Overall, it's still a fun take on Star Fox rail-themed shooter game. One type of game I don't mind seeing more of even today. It has a nice feel of an arcade shooter with intense, fast gameplay, with some hints of spaceflight sim elements thrown in to give it a little depth. What a strange name though. It doesn't seem to fit the game at all in my opinion. It sounds really generic when you hear it. Space debris could be any old rocks or junk flying around in space. What about Space Armada or Space Adventure or something else? Space Force. If you really want to import it, I know that that's a bit of a challenge to play in the States, because you'll need a PAL system and a TV that will accept a PAL signal. So before you invest in a new setup just to play the game, it might be worth it to try it out first. Alright guys, that's going to wrap it up today. Thanks so much for watching and I hope you have a good one.